Hey, Pepe, I see you all blurry-eyed today. Eh? You stayed up late to watch the game.
We went from Dia's Tavern, man, to Fernando's. We spent the whole night out on the town. We celebrated this win, this Portugal. They beat Fiji at the World Cup. It was a great night to celebrate this victory for my people, man. I mean, I'm from Mexico, but you know, we're kind of like brothers.
And there your Portuguese roots come in, eh?
That's true, mate.
Eh? I found my Irish roots this weekend. You found your Portuguese roots. What a wonderful, wonderful weekend of rugby.
Fabulous.
Hey, Fiji doing everything for World Rugby to save the playoff phases. Gifting Portugal a wonderful win. Portugal.
Hey, how nice was that?
That was great.
And you know, we always say, those guys, they're good footballers. We actually mean it in this case. They really are.
They are good footballers. And, you know, 1 point, 1 goal, it doesn't matter. There was a moment where I thought, do you know what? This is going to end in a draw for these buggers as well.
Yeah.
The 18-all against Georgia. But Fiji, you have a belief about Fiji and the way they approach rugby because it is their job, this professional side.
Yeah, you just get the feeling with Fiji that they sort of clock in, clock out kind of guys. So they went into the match knowing they needed a bonus point to win. And I think once they were sort of happy that they were going to be in there with a shot with the bonus point, I think their attention wasn't really on winning. Afterwards, the Fiji coach was talking about how the pressure was on them and to perform and get them through to the... I don't know. I was quite disappointed with that performance. You'd expect Fiji to roll Portugal, especially at the World Cup where they're on their way to the playoffs. You know, keep that momentum, set a precedent. You've got big knockout rugby coming up. And the eye was off the ball. Well, the eye was actually on the ball. They tried to run it from everywhere, play beautiful rugby. Couldn't punch it in when they were in the 22. Portugal ready to die to win that game. Mission accomplished. Triple team tackles, man. It was amazing.
I mean, if you look at Fiji and the game against Wales, and that was a ripper. And then the way they demolished Australia at the breakdown. Georgia, they took a pounding physically. And Portugal... Wow, the defense. I mean, their coach, Patrick Lagozé,
yes,
who is a fine French winner, one of the best winners who played for France. He's the coach, the outgoing coach of Portugal. That was his last game in charge. And what a place to get the victory for him in France. Pre-game, he was asked, what did they take from, what are their tactics going to be against Fiji? And he said they watched the Georgian game. Basically tackle, tackle, and tackle. And it was a swarm defense. And Fiji looked clueless at times. Didn't quite know what to do with the ball.
Yeah. But I mean, you can kind of see how that could happen, right? You've got 1.5 eyes on playoff rugby. You don't want to get hurt. You think these guys are pushovers, and they're playing like kamikaze rugby. Like I say, they're ready to die for the cause. So, you know, you can kind of see that thing happening. But just the way it went right down to the wire, and then Portugal won it. I mean, it's insane.
I mean, for this kind of World Cup, you can see this result, obviously a fantastic one for Portugal. You can see Fiji turning around and beating England in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
Final.
Absolutely.
They're that kind of team. But
it depends what the coach says he needs from them.
We'll get to them a bit later again. But Portugal, half those players are based in Portugal. They play in the Portuguese league, which we be like playing in our club league here in Cape Town and South Africa. And the other half are playing in the second division, Pro 12 in France. There'll be a few top 14 contracts, I'm sure, that will come out of this one. And again, the world rugby will fall in love with Portugal for about another week.
Yeah.
And like they did with Fiji in 2007, that was their breakthrough year, by the way, when they got to the quarterfinals in Marseille against us.
Yes.
And lost 37-20. Everyone said, this is it. The Pacific Islanders are here. Well, never to hear from them again until now. Tonga 2011, breakthrough year. They beat France in the World Cup. Investment in the Islanders. Nothing happened. Then Japan got their great win. They did invest pretty much with their businesses into that national setup. And now the wonderful story is obviously Portugal at this World Cup. Poor Georgia now thinks someone's leapfrogged us. We've been handing in the seventh nation for how long?
Yeah.
And here comes Portugal. What investment will there be? Absolutely zero. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that as much as we pretend that this is a global game, and it is a global game, it's played across the globe, the infrastructure is not there to develop teams so that there are 25 teams that can compete at a World Cup realistically. And I mean, that's just the reality of life. Portugal, we cannot schedule games for them to play the Springboks and the All Blacks every year because A, nobody would watch it, and B, it's not going to help Portuguese rugby to take 100 points twice, 3 times, 4 times a year. So it's not so much that these minnows need to play Tier 1 teams. It's that the Tier 2 competition needs to be better resourced. Money needs to be spent on coaching and grassroots rugby effectively in those nations, so that you are getting quality players that come through. But then, even in that sort of framework, the reality is that money talks. And if you are Pablo da Silva at Lisbon Rugby Club and a top 14 club spots you at the age of 18, you're not hanging around. You're going to go get paid euros, you're going to get paid big bucks to go play in the top 14, and then you're gone. And then it kind of perpetuates the cycle of it. So there is no quick fix to creating a rugby legacy in a nation, and World Rugby's proven that over the years. But
so should we just see this Portuguese campaign for what it was, a fantastic hit out? All the players describe themselves as mates, just good friends, going out there and giving it a bash. The thing that shocked me the most, and shocked is the word, because I've never kind of associated with the Portuguese team, was the mongrel and the fight in these guys. I mean, they put their bodies on the line. They were outstanding. Even when they played Wales, although it was Wales' second team, they were hanging in there. Their physicality surprised me against Georgia and even the Australian game. And I mean, Australia at the lowest ebb that they've ever been. But Australia, that second half, 10-7. So in Australia, won 34-14. Let's package it, compliment the Portuguese. I mean, your origins are Portuguese. How do you say to them, well done, mate, bloody good, mate?
Well done, chaps. Hope you had a great time.
Oh, is chaps the word for mate?
that's Portuguese.
Chaps.
Yeah, chaps. Listen, so one thing I do want to say about this game is it does highlight how great a sport rugby is, because you can have an environment like this at a World Cup where just the desire can pull you through. Desire and a bit of smart tactics from Patrice and Portugal are there with the famous win. That kind of thing generally can't happen in other sports. You can't just will your way to it. Like, there's an element of the sort of brotherhood that really is spotlighted by this result.
It was a wonderful way to kind of ring-fence the 40-match playoffs, which by and large have been very disappointing. 8 matches out of the 40, the scoreline was 7 points or less. 45 matches, it was 30-plus points. And I think 20% of those matches, 50-plus points. There were so many one-sided results. We now get into the playoffs. It's seemingly strength versus strength. Obviously, the two big ones are going to be Ireland against the All Blacks and South Africa against the host France. But over and above, they were like, we look at this Portugal game and it's wonderful. We look at the Fiji game against Australia, and because of the history-making nature of it, you look at one or two others, and then the standout game from just a pure rugby perspective was obviously Ireland's 13-8 win against the Boks. But really, thank God the month is over and we can actually move on to
the real deal.
The real deal. And I'm not blaspheming here. I'm thanking the good Lord that the month is over and that we now get to 1 weekend at least of proper rugby. Before we get there, though, Zels, I just want to say I just can't believe the sympathy, the emotional outpouring towards Australia. Who really cares if Australia's strong all week? They've mocked the world in every sport for as long as they've dominated. I thought it was bloody marvelous the way Fiji took them and played with the emotions all night. I mean, how many times did Australia have to pack, unpack, we're going, guys, to the airport? No, we're staying.
Mate, I'll tell you who's not impressed is Guido, mate.
Eh?
He's not impressed.
Old Eddie, eh? There was this part of his smash and grab tactics. I actually wanted that game to go down to the 81st minute. Fiji scores an intercept and loses by 7 points. As Australia was settling in to that team room again for one more week to go play the old foe England. Boom. So it really toyed with their emotions. What a week they must have had. Just waiting and knowing the inevitable was going to happen.
I'll never shed a tear for Australian rugby, mate. As much as it is great, it was great to have the Gregans and the Larkhams. We've got a great rivalry with those guys, and when we were low, mate, nobody was busting out, breaking open the boxes of Twin Savers for us. So it is what it is. Australian rugby, as we've spoken about before, is paying the price for chasing stuff that's not rugby. And they've got a lot of work to clean that thing up.
But I mean, also Australia, New Zealand, it's as if we care about their well-being within the confines of Australia, and New Zealand, and the global game must now take a backseat because they're competing with AFL, they're competing with cricket, they're competing with the rugby league, they're competing with basketball, netball, whatever it is, and football. We've now got to change the game to tailor that.
No.
They've got to fit in or F off.
Get the message, Eddie.
I don't like to swear, but it was close there. So Eddie Jones had said it was going to be a smash and grab. He won 2 matches this year. That was against Portugal.
Yeah.
And now he will claim a famous win there after what they did to Fiji and against Georgia. But wholly disappointing. And I wish the world of rugby and the leadership would show the same kind of care and passion about the demise of Australian rugby as they do when it comes to the Pacific Islanders and the likes of Spain, Georgia, and Portugal. And Georgia especially, they've been on the cusp for so long. No investment in them, but this love affair with Italy. An Italian side that took 96 points against the All Blacks and 60 points against France. The biggest letdown at that World Cup, Italy in the last fortnight.
Yeah, agree 100% on that. Italy have done themselves no favour in the debate about their future in the Six Nations. They're literally in the picture because of geography. So, I was very disappointed with Italy. And I'm just thinking about that Pacific Islands comment. Like the Pacific Islanders also haven't helped themselves either, because this whole like inclusiveness of world rugby, where everybody gets to be anything they want to be. I can go be Scottish if I just spend 3 years in Edinburgh. How many Pacific Islanders were there in that Romanian team? I think there were a couple in there. They're spread across multiple teams. If we went back to where you're born is where you play, the Pacific Islanders suddenly have a pretty decent team to draw on. And there's some other nations who are a lot weaker because they don't have these guys padding their team.
Well, that comes back to Lima Supahaga was the man of the match in the Samoan 1-point defeat against England. Now, he played for the All Blacks, born in New Zealand, raised in New Zealand, Samoan heritage. And he was in tears afterwards and said, I'm so glad I made the switch. My comment is you should never have chosen the All Blacks in the first place.
Correct, man.
If you felt that strongly about Samoa, choose Samoa.
Correct.
If you feel strongly about Tonga, choose Tonga and Fiji. And make those teams strong. And then the All Blacks, if you want to play for the All Blacks and you're born in New Zealand, it's because you really want to play for them. You respect your cultural heritage, but you don't want to play for a Tonga, Fiji, or Samoa. So it's like, I can't make the All Blacks. I'm going to go play for one of those teams. And then when I do, I'm going to say I should have done that from the outset.
Yeah.
So I agree totally with you. I think it's why World Rugby plays around with the Pacific Islanders.
Big time.
Because they're dispensable. Those players who are playing, who can make the Australian side or the England side or the All Black side, tend to go there first. So, yeah, and I mean, again, collectively, you could see that Samoa just getting into their stride, not well conditioned enough to be at this World Cup. Fiji hit and miss. Tonga really look like a side with some very good individuals in it, but haven't played together for a long time. Don't play together regularly, and it's like this lie, this facade. Like, look how good it looks every 4 years. It's like going to a wedding and seeing your long-lost cousins, and they're like, oh, what are you doing, Zels? We got to get together. Give me your number. And then you see them in 11 years at another wedding. You just know they're not phoning, and you're not phoning them, okay? So World Rugby's not phoning these guys.
Yeah.
For me, I think one way to address a lot of these things would be promotion relegation. Six Nations, Italy drops down. One of those others has the motivation to go up. And then who knows? England ends bottom, they go down. But again, broadcasting money, World Rugby, the Old Boys Club won't allow for that. I think a new European competition, I've been thinking about it this weekend, which could be sold as a global European Cup, would be Portugal, Spain, Georgia and Australia. I think that'd be a great competition, okay? So Fiji into the rugby championship. Australia out! At least I'll be competitive, Australia.
Yeah, mate, they'll have a chance of winning something again.
At least I'll be competitive.
That's a great
Smash and
chance.
grab, Eddie.
Exactly. But that really is what they've got to do, is they've got to have a supercharged second-tier European competition and then cut and paste that to other regions of the world and basically market the hell out of it, hype up the players that are in there and create a very sort of, from competitive balance, a very intriguing product where anybody can win on the day. Then you've got something.
Look, I like what you said in the previous show. And a lot of people have been saying this. This World Cup, as we see it, could be the last one in this, guys, with the point system coming into an every 2-year world championship type setup. And then the club structures is getting stronger. The stronger the club gets, and there's been this call for that global North versus South Crusaders, play Toulouse, play Leinster in a final, for a kind of super cup, super competition. That to me is where you'll see the growth of the game.
Spot on.
In Portugal, in Spain. If
Spot
those
on.
players are playing in very good teams in Europe, the game automatically grows.
Also, if you can't, so if a Pacific Islander cannot play for France, hypothetically, and he's playing for a top 14 club, he's valuable to that club because there's a chance that he's not going to get called up for national duty. Now you've got guys in all of these squads from foreign countries. And I just think it makes a shame of the whole thing, because you basically have got a club rugby system that's under the guise of international teams. If you had to say where you're born is where you play, it changes the whole face of it. It gives credibility back to the World Cup.
Do that again?
The World Cup.
Can you do that in Portuguese?
No, mate, I can't.
Eh?
Can't,
This is the guy is Portuguese, those that don't know it, and he's very proud to be Portuguese. He was very proud last night. Tamasha, given the Tamasha, they're like, you want this? Give me the chappies back. And, no, but like he is genuinely Portuguese, so people think he's
discounted
Mexican.
chippies.
People think he's Mexican, Rick, but he's actually Portuguese, and was a proud night for him. I was just belting out Zombie and thinking of my Cork heritage and the Red Army wearing Munster blue.
Listen, I mean,
Munster blue,
I don't want to harp on it, but watching Scotland lose to Ireland with Duan van der Merwe, VPNL, Piers Scoop,
It was lacquer.
it's just, mate.
It was lacquer.
Felt like a Currie Cup game.
By the way, for everyone in Ireland, that was a little joke for Zels. It's not Munster blue. It's Munster making Leinster feel blue. It's Munster red always.
Yes.
We're going to get to the brave Scots, the not so brave Scots, in a
Yes.
bit. But I just want to say thanks. I know you weren't feeling well this weekend. I know you were partying hard last night after the Portuguese win. But thanks for coming in. I did ask you to do one thing. You know, we've had amazing feedback from all of you guys, ladies, and people out there. I think 200 plus cities in the world. Someone's logging on and watching us. We say, why? But apparently you guys enjoy it, and it really feels good. Thanks for the wonderful compliments. I don't think we've ever had as many in our life, okay? People ask us why we don't have a sponsor. No one will give us money. And they don't want to give us money
Don't sugarcoat it.
because they want us to endorse their product, and we say no.
Exactly. We will not bow to the corporates.
They want us to kind of talk about chefs and talk about insurance policies, and then we just say no. You know,
Yeah.
so we'd rather just talk rugby.
But having said that, if you don't have household insurance,
But there's a request. I mean, we get an audience from all over the world and a massive audience in the United States. And Daniel says that his missus, One Taylor, is a big fan of yours, Zels. She's in Orange
Incredible.
County in the United States.
Orange County, wow.
Would
All
you
the
like
way.
to just give her a cuddle?
Taylor, I'm not sure why, but I'm very glad to hear that you're enjoying the show all the way in the United States. I'm not sure what time of the day you are waking up to watch. I suppose it doesn't really matter because it is YouTube. But we love the support. Thanks for the message. Give Dan a big hug and keep watching. Keep those comments coming in.
And a really cool week for us as well, because we've gone past 10 million views. That's across YouTube, Facebook, Insta, and on our Twitter feed. And it is a really cool thing to know that so many people just want to discuss and talk about rugby, and it shows the passion. 50% of our audience is South African, the other 50% is overseas. But the thing that I've really enjoyed the most is the kind of comments. Now, I'm used to kind of having comments chucked at me where it starts with a P, it ends with an S, okay? No debate in between, all right? And it reminds me of in 1994 in New Zealand. I was at the Loaded Hog down at the Viaduct, and it was when the Boks won tour, and Rudolf Stroide came over to me. It was just on the eve of the third test. I was this young firebrand, earrings in my ear. They used to call me the cowboy in New Zealand. I shoot from both hips. And Rob Lowe was there with Tian Strauss. They weren't playing, and Dion Lotte at the time. And Rudolf Stroide came over to me and he started poking me in the chest and started telling me that I'm a disgrace as a South African for how I've written about the Springboks on tour. And back in the day, those people Rudolf and I made up and we worked together with the Springboks. And I just said to him, you know, if anyone's a disgrace, you're a disgrace. You've come here, you've just called the win against some first division side, one of the great ones, Taranaki at the time. in the mud. You've called that one of the great wins. You're a disgrace. I said, every time you guys put on that green jersey, you strip away its mystique. and I could just
What mystique?
I could just see this groundswell of non-playing reserves just circling around me. Everyone else leaving me. And he poked me and he told me what he was going to do. And then typically with a big guy who's going to knock you out, you've got to cast that one moment of doubt. And I looked at him and I said to him, do you think I drink out of both hands? And I had the two beers in my hand. I said, I'm from the northern suburbs in Cape Town. We don't drink with both hands. There's a reason I've got bottles in both hands. And then he looked at me and poked me again. And then I said to him, just imagine if I don't go down.
If you hit me with your best shot and I don't go
down. I mean, you could never live with that. You know? And so over and above that,
yeah.
Chris Barnos, who used to play for the Cheetahs,
flyer.
The flyer, but a fearsome flyer. He just looks like an angry oak all the time. Okay, he's circling, and I'm thinking, okay, I've tamed the big beast there because he's got doubt that I may not go down because I could be too drunk. Okay. Yeah. What I need to do now is soften the blows. I need to get these Springboks back on my side. And I said in Afrikaans, Chris, wat dink u?
Did you say it like that?
And he said, ek dink, jy's a and that was the end of the discussion. I went over to Tian Strauss at the time, and I'd obviously been writing province rugby in the early 90s. And Tian Strauss was sitting at the Loaded Hog on the bar, next to the bar like that, looking at me and said, finally, we thought someone was going to knock you out.
Still hasn't
I'm like,
happened.
thanks for the help, guys. So, so that was the story on that. Just kind of a little diversion.
That's beautiful. So I spent 7 years writing for the Argus, following in your footsteps, and they opened up the SMS columns there in the early 2000s, and boy, did the people let me have it. It was glorious stuff. So I'm on the same train as you. I am very surprised at the ratio of comments. In a way, I'm a little bit disappointed. There's not enough vitriol there, but a lot of positive comments. People seem to be enjoying the show, which is great. And
mate, don't ever call for vitriol. You know, I had a thing on Twitter many years ago. 3 guys opened accounts. There were 75,000 tweets aimed at me to basically eliminate my family, take me out. And at the heart of it all was because they thought I backed the Kings and not the Lions.
Well, you can understand that.
It's the craziest thing. So I've seen the hatred, I've seen the vitriol that comes out, but what I've loved about the comments around this show, it's so rugby focused.
Very rugby
People
focused.
want to talk rugby, they want to hear your technical analysis, they want to hear my opinions, they want to give their opinions. And for that, I just want to say to all of you, from Zels and myself and Imad, our wonderful, beautiful producer, I just want to say thanks. We really appreciate the support. We love doing the show. We just love talking about rugby. And if we weren't talking about rugby here, we'd just be talking about rugby all day, on the phone to each other, having a coffee. We just absolutely enjoy the game, are passionate about the game, and really embrace everyone's opinions. And everyone, there's no right or wrong in terms of the opinions. It's kind of something to think about. And I think if there was more discussion and more debate, we'd all be a lot more wiser.
Oh, mate, that's a great outro. Do we still have more to go?
As Jerry Springer once said, this is yours in rugby. So looking at all the comments that did come through, and it's been nice. I put it out on the Twitter feeds and emails and saying, kind of send us your questions, send us your insights, send us your thoughts. And, one of the most passionate guys, obviously, is Graham Jenica. And people are Survivor. Some people overseas. He was a South African Survivor winner, and he's a really cool dude. And he's got a wonderful family. And I can't believe he hasn't been back on Survivor to give it another go when I see some of the Palookas who go back, okay? But passionate about rugby and just so insightful in terms of the questions he asked. Also never known an oak who has spent every single minute of this World Cup glued to the till. He hasn't missed a game.
Unbelievable.
I had to ask him who's playing, who's winning. Okay? But he asked a very interesting question for us to address, and we're going to start that now. Looking at the quarterfinalists.
Yes.
How do we think they shaped in their last pool game? And let's start with the All Blacks. We'll be back just after this.
The All Blacks, I'm taking punches here because before the World Cup, I said Argentina was a dark horse. I said Australia would surprise people. Well, they have by how bad they are. And I've been cautioning against the All Blacks clicking back into form. But I'm going to have to, change tack because there just doesn't seem to be anything going on there. The All Blacks have got some fantastic world-class players there, but they've also carrying a lot of average talent in that pack. And we're getting to the sharp end of the tournament where it's not about how well you can dance, it's about how you feature in the gutters, and the All Blacks don't have the guys for the gutters. And I don't see how they get through the quarterfinals and get to the semis. Unless there's a radical turnaround, I just see a continuance of this downward trend with them.
Look, and again, putting on the record, all my family's in New Zealand. My mom was a Kiwi. I grew up loving the All Blacks as much as I did the Springboks. I lived in the country, enjoyed it, got a lot of mates there. So people that's thinking, what's he got against the All Blacks? All I've got against the All Blacks is Ian Foster and a really crap team. That's it. And they've really done the history of in professional rugby, All Blacks, quite a disservice. Because it's just been one uninspiring performance on the field and off the field after the other. When you go back to the mighty McCall and Dan Carter era, the one thing that those blokes had, and Peter de Villiers, who coached the Springboks, said when McCall left, they're going to really feel it. Why? Because he's such a great player. He said no, because of his his discipline as a leader.
Yeah.
And this All Black side is so ill-disciplined about the basics. So you go back to the Uruguay game, they were always going to win by 60 or 70 points by nature of their conditioning, by nature of them being such talented individuals. That first 20 minutes, an absolute disregard for the pull, as they call it. The ball wasn't protected. They were playing behind the gain line. They were playing helter-skelter Harlem Globetrotter rugby. And a very, very limited Uruguay team was just applying a basic defense, and they looked in trouble. Now imagine a Springbok defense, an Irish defense, a French defense swarming on them like that. They wouldn't have come out of those 20 minutes unscathed. It was 0-0. They would have been 10, 15 points down. They would not have got back into the game. So when I looked at that game, I looked at that first 20 minutes and I thought, here are 5 or 6 players potentially playing for a spot in the 23. And have they done themselves any justice? Absolutely not. And then no one, for me, looked like they said, this is my moment to show I can do X, Y, and Z.
I mean, if you watch the broadcast of that game, it starts with them doing the haka, and the pre-haka has got Samuel Kane doing, I don't know, saying something there in the huddle. And it looks like Rudolph Straley on Saturday Night Live. The Oak looks completely out of his depth and in the wrong place. He's just the wrong guy for that. And he's probably a lovely bloke and he's a decent player, but he's not the right guy to be leading this All Blacks team at this time. He's the anti-seer, I suppose. He's the wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time. And so the All Blacks, I mean, in that match, they put the ball on the deck more than I've seen them do throughout the Richie McCaw era. Uruguay, in patches in that game, were dominating the breakdown, counter-rucking them. It was a disaster, man. It just they look like a team that just cannot pull it together. And we spoke a bit on the phone over the weekend, swapped a few messages, and I said to you, they've gone from sweeping the shed to wetting the bed. And in a way, that really does talk to the when I watch Richie watching them, like, I don't feel like Richie really wants to be associated with this team. You get a feeling from McCall that, like, this is not the team with the black boots and the black socks and everything squared away and we all do it together and this is the system. They really do seem to be a much more player-driven team, and they don't have the cachet in terms of the quality of some of those players up front to be a player-driven team. They really do need to get back to doing things the All Blacks way.
An incredibly uninspiring head coach in terms of Ian Foster.
Yeah.
And even his attitude towards his successor, Scott Robertson,
Jeez,
not
what is that
wanting him
about?
at the games, let alone close to the team, not in the stands. And I mean, and kudos to Scott Robinson for respecting and actually not going to the games, but how insecure, how petty, and what does that say to the coach? I mean, I go back a year ago, Richie Mohanga, one of the big names that came out and backed Foster to stay till the end of his tenure. Scott Robinson didn't ban him from training at the Crusaders, didn't drop him the next week when they got back. He said the guy believes in his national coach, and you know, that's a great thing. Hopefully they'll give him the kind of results and the performance that he expects from them. But again, I looked at Andy Farrell and just soaking it up after that Scotland performance. During it, he was pumped for that first 5 minutes, and then afterwards, just taking in the noise. Looking at Bundi Aki walking around with his kids on his shoulder. Peter O'Mahony with his kids. And the only thing Ian Foster had on his shoulders was those 2 chips that make him so balanced. I mean, that All Black side is so burdened with mediocrity.
Yeah, that is a great way of putting it, mate.
And you just looked at the joyous expression of the Irish. And I must say, I loved everything I saw about Ireland on the weekend. 63 seconds it took to end the permutations. And at 36-0, it could have been 56-0. And completely outclassed a Scotland side that didn't fire a shot. Scotland are not so brave. They were never going to win it. We had said 13 to 15 points differential, but I really expected them to pitch up and do something.
Yeah, agree with all those sentiments. I thought Scotland were underwhelming. Ireland took advantage of it like they should have. And like we said before, one thing that Farrell has got right, and I mean they're on the cusp of matching the record for most consecutive wins, is Ireland have put a premium on consistently winning. And there is definitely a value to that, because whether Ireland really are the real deal and are a team capable of beating the best teams in the world at a World Cup becomes less of a factor because they believe they are. This team has no doubt that they are the world's number 1 team and on their way to a world championship, and that's worth points.
Look, I know he's not everyone's favourite, Peter O'Mahony, because just because how he calls it like he sees it. I mean, his comment to Sam Cane in the third and final test when the All Blacks were about to create their own kind of history, when he grabbed him and he screamed at the All Black captain, "You're just a crap Richie McCaw." I mean, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
And then his altercation with Duan van der Merwe when they were at each other's throats, and he just told him, "You're just not good enough to make the Springboks. That's why you play for Scotland."
Right.
I think those are magnificent chats.
Fantastic. I love that.
And then his quote after the game, congratulations to Peter, by the way, 100 test matches for Ireland. What an occasion, and what a way to kind of celebrate it. But his comments after the game, because the Scottish were bullish before the game. Blake Keenan had said, like, yep, they've beaten everyone, but their run ends on Saturday night. We figured them out. And he had to drop that in his post-match interview, and he said, they said they would beat us, and they said they'd figured us out. I didn't quite see it. So I didn't quite see it.
Neither did Blair. He was on the touchline.
And it so amazes me with these commentators when Scotland scored 2 quick tries. 36-0 Ireland taking everyone off. 36-14. Commentators, why didn't we see the Scotland in the first 10 minutes? Because that Scotland was never going to be allowed to play.
Correct, mate.
Talk me through that opening try. 63 seconds. You're the technical man.
Oh.
Was it anything flash that Ireland did, or was it just shock in defence from Scotland?
I think it's probably a bit of both. You know, great execution. It's obviously a move that they've done a million times in training, and came off on the day as planned. And Scotland kind of caught with their pants down. So great way for Ireland to get going, set a precedent for the rest of the match, and here we go. We're into the quarterfinals with them looking hot.
All right, so let's go to Scotland. A lot of talk, in the pool of death, ranked 5th in the world. Disgrace that they should be going home. They would have gone through with another team. All what that would have happened is they would have gone home next week.
Yes.
Not good enough. 18-3 against the Springboks, never looked like scoring.
Yep.
36-0 down against a flamboyant, informal Irish team, never looked like scoring.
Yep.
That's their World Cup. Forget about the other games. Forget 84-0 against Romania.
Correct.
Not good enough, okay. Then we look at England against Samoa. Now, this is the tragedy of this World Cup.
Yeah.
England shouldn't even be going through.
No.
They won by a point. They looked awful. Their 2 biggest wins, it's getting 71-3 against Chile. Aaron Doyle got 5 tries. Everyone's raving about him. He made the team of the week. Can you believe it back then? How awful did England look against a Samoan side that has struggled?
Yeah, and there's just nothing going on there. There's no part of their game that you think, okay, wow, these guys have got some point of difference here, and if they leverage this, you know, they can turn it around. They just seem to be treading water. You know, it's almost like they're in survival mode. There's just, in that first game where Georgie Ford kicked all the drop goals, you were like, okay, maybe these guys are onto something. That was a point of difference. You know, if they play around this, something could happen. But, you know, nothing's happened since then.
Is the point of difference he's been an incredible servant? No, Owen Farrell, don't pick him. Because George Ford is a different player when Owen Farrell's not there.
Yes.
And when he's given the job to do at 10, and he controls it. When Farrell's there, I mean, his presence is strong. He's the captain. This love affair with Marcus Smith, I don't know where they want to play him. Then fullback, then bring him in to come at first receiver. But are they not at the cusp where they have to make a call? It's one or the other.
No, absolutely. They have to. And I mean, Australian rugby went through that thing where they had 25 playmakers that were world class. They try to put them all together in the same backline. It just doesn't work. You've got to have guys that do the specific tasks for their positions. And as great a player as Owen Farrell is, and I'd love to have him in my team, and I would probably build a team around Owen Farrell. Georgie Ford is a guy that brings his own unique skill set that may be a better fit for where this England team is, because this England team can't really play 10-man rugby because that pack, you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. You need a little bit of a Messi there to switch things on and switch things off as needed. So putting Owen Farrell and Georgie Ford together, it's like Butch James and Mornay Steyn, both great Springbok players,
Sundance kid
together. Yeah, exactly, the Sundance kid. Yeah, you wouldn't put them together, Butch Cassidy and Mornay Steyn, in the same back line. And for the same reason, I wouldn't play Owen and George Ford together. Having said that, the rest of their back line is exactly... This is why Eddie, I think, eventually just lost patience with that England job. He just didn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the ammo. You know, if you take Owen Farrell out of there, who do you put in? They've left Slade behind. So where does that leave them?
Well, it leaves them in the quarterfinals to play a Fijian side that we said were pretty disappointed against Portugal. One of Fiji or England is going to go to a World Cup semi-final.
England are 8-point favourites to beat Fiji at the moment, I think.
But one of those two teams is going to be in a World Cup semi-final, and two of the top 4 teams in the world are going to be home. Now, look, it's going to change, obviously, from the next one. They said they're going to announce the draw a year out. But still, I mean, it's just been a shambles. And it's why this World Cup just hasn't taken off for me in the first month.
Agreed.
There's been the odd game in that. So I felt England didn't make the statement to answer the questions that were out there. How do we feel each team win that's going to play?
Yes.
I felt Fiji didn't make a statement. Would you concur?
Agreed.
England didn't make a statement.
No.
Ireland, massive statement.
Yes.
South Africa, it felt like 1987 and 1991. We weren't there this weekend. It was a terrible feeling not seeing the Boks
Forgettable
play.
performance.
But I think the Boks have made enough of a statement in their games. And also, we will finally know, come this weekend, what games Rassie and Jock have been playing all along, because there is no escape after Sunday night.
Yes.
They win, they go through, and that would mean they've taken the hosts out of a World Cup for the second successive World Cup. If they lose, well, then maybe they just weren't good enough all along.
Spot on.
Looking at what remains, the hosts, France. Wow. I thought they were outstanding, given there was no Dupont and no Intermac. We've been waiting for them to potentially fold. They just get, like Ireland, they just getting better. This is a different generation French team, different generation Irish team.
Yeah, no, fantastic. That French team is loaded with talent across the board. As far as the European teams go, France they've got power and panache, you know, and the Dantes, the Pinots, Ramos is a fantastic player. They're a hot team, and if Dupont comes back with a face mask and delivers anything close to, 90% of his ability, it's going to be an interesting quarterfinal.
And they've got one of the best coaching duos in the world. Fabian Gaultier, head coach, Sean Edwards, defensive coach. Wherever Sean Edwards goes, that guy got French discipline right. He got the French to tackle, but he got them to do it in a structured, emotionless, passionate way. How any of the home unions could have let him go is just beyond me. Fabian Gaultier, one of the most successful captains of France. That's when they were really at their strongest back in the day. Eventually got given the job as the head coach. He understands the French DNA. He speaks to that. He kind of understands rugby because the big illusion is that France is this flamboyant, romantic side, and they're not. No. They kick more than anyone else in the game. And if the All Blacks took a little bit from South Africa, a little bit from France, and not as much as they want to take from Ireland.
Exactly.
They would be in a lot healthier position.
Spot on.
Okay, so we've got France, South Africa. We're going to talk about that one later in the week, obviously, once we've seen the two match 23s. We got New Zealand, Ireland, also in the next show. We got Wales against Argentina. Wales, Scotty, Wales! Wales in the valley. We're machine in the valley, Wales. Wales! Wales! I love Wales, eh?
I've noticed, mate.
So, great-grandfather from Ireland, grandfather from Wales, the old man somewhere up in the north, Doncaster. That's why he went to Australia to meet my mom, okay? Back to New Zealand, and then, to Cape Town. So there you've got it all wrapped around. I can't lose in the World Cup.
Whoever wins the World Cup, I've got
blood in me. I've got blood in me somewhere. But Wales, Argentina, you'd really think Wales have grown steadily under the radar. They've had the draw to do that. Argentina, I know you love Shaker. You always believe Argentina is better than they are. Which one made the statement for you? Did Argentina make a statement in beating Japan?
No, they didn't. They made hard work of beating Japan, unnecessarily hard work of beating Japan. It looks like Pablo Matera's out for a bit, which is a huge loss for them. Wales have lost Faletau. So I'm not sure sort of the rub of the green who wins in that equation. Wales have definitely been building, though. There's progress. You can see they're moving in the right direction. Argentina just flattered to deceive. Boffelli, for me, is one of the best players in the world. I love that guy. They've got talent. Carrera scored a hat-trick. Argentina, and I don't want to put this down to Checker, but if Argentina just went back to what made them great, they'd have a much better chance of winning in the playoffs. When Nicolas Sanchez comes on in the fourth quarter there, Argentina just click into a game style that is much more efficient. It's less sexy, but more efficient. And for me, Sanchez is a massively underrated player. I've been surprised how quickly they've started to filter him out. I know they've got an eye on the future, but the World Cup is now. And for me, that is a guy that has to be a 10 for Argentina because I think he brings the best out of that pack and the best out of those outside backs like Boffelli and Carrera. So
Wales under Gatlin?
Wales under Gatlin, there's been an improvement, obviously. I think what he did fantastically, we've spoken about it before, is he sort of tore the plaster off. He made the transition from the old dogs to the youngster. Jackie Morgan taking over as captain. And there's definitely like a new life and belief in this Wales team. And
Pack of wild dogs.
Pack of wild dogs, yeah.
Wild, young, hungry dogs.
Yeah. And so Gatlin knows how to... Technically, Gatlin knows how to win World Cup matches. He understands percentage rugby. And so if this Wales team can just sort of keep on the track that they're going on, there's a good chance that they sneak into the semi-finals and beat Argentina.
So you could have a situation of England and Wales, both of them diabolical in the Six Nations, being in a World Cup semi-final.
Yeah. Yes, you could.
Whoever's on the other side must just be thinking, and that means one of them goes through to the final.
But I think those two teams will be the patsies to ensure that the final is a quality one. I think that was the point of that draw, is to make sure that the final has got the two best teams, even if the semi-finals are a bit of a joke.
All right, we're going to talk in depth later in the week. We'll preview all the games. Obviously, our focus will be on the Springboks against France. But just looking at that game, people saying to me over the weekend, oh, pity we didn't get the All Blacks. I'm like, you're going to get France sometime. I'd rather get them in a quarter-final than get them in a final. Because you get through them in a quarter-final, you become the chosen team for those locals as well. But I've always been of the belief, you've got to beat everyone. And if your mindset is, I want to avoid a team, you're not good enough to be there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's been Russie's approach. And it's certainly been Farrell's approach with Ireland. They play who's ever in front of them, and they'll beat them, and they've won 17 in a row. Have the Irish going to equal the All Blacks and the Springboks record, Tier 1 nation of 18 in a row. And absolutely deserved. I mean, they really have been good. The last time they lost was in Auckland, 42-19 against the All Blacks. The 1 week the All Blacks didn't have a coach. They scored 6 tries and looked magnificent. For those who also asked, we're not going to discuss it today, but we will talk about the Joe Smith factor. The man who built Ireland got Polacks 46-14 in his last game in charge in Japan in the quarterfinals. He's now in the All Blacks coaching box. He said he would never coach against Ireland. He's there as the master tactician. It'll be very interesting to see the emotions he's going through this week, the range of emotions he'll go through over the weekend as well. Bringing it right back, we're going to wrap up in our last few minutes of discussion, the Springboks. So the Boks management has come out over the weekend and said, let's not put too much pressure on Lekanya. You can't thrust him straight back. It was the same management that said they haven't picked him to come and sit in the stands. Now, is it a case that maybe they've seen a couple of things at training and thought he's not quite there yet?
No, Lekanya's going to start. This is part of the mind games part of the week where we pretend like Lekanya's not in the selection picture, but hey, we'll definitely consider him for the semi-finals. Lekanya going to be in the picture this week. They're going to get him on the field. Whether he starts or not, I don't know. But this is just to sow a little seed of doubt, I suppose, and have a bit of a surprise factor. He may not even be named in the match day squad, but come the weekend he'll be there. And
you believe he'll run out in the 13 jersey? Yes or no?
If I had to put money on it one way or the other, I think he'll run out in the 13 jersey.
Thanks. It took a lot to get that out.
Yeah, man, I had to process it, man. I'm a slow processor.
Okay, but now looking at one of the interesting points that was raised is like we've got all this depth 33 players who at any given time looks like they can play in a World Cup final. Only 23 can play. Has that been a positive or a negative when you look at other teams don't quite have 33? They probably have maybe 22 or 24 players that they've had to rely on a certain core group of players. They've got continuity. They play a lot more in terms of consistent game time, while we mix and match a lot more. Is that a positive for the Boks, or is that a negative?
We're going to find out the answer to that question this weekend. That question and many others about the Springbok team. Because what Russie's done is he's created a great environment where nobody is sitting on a comfortable chair. Everybody is standing or on an old stool. And not quite sure where they stand, eager to impress, desperate to take the opportunities when they come, and of the belief that they are Russie's guy because he plays everybody enough for that belief to be true. And so there's value in that because you've got this massive squad. You're less susceptible to injuries. Guys can fill in. But the downside is potentially the lack of continuity. And when you throw in the mind games that we've been playing and the silly buggers we've been doing on the field, it all comes down to these next 3 games for the Boks. If the Boks go unbeaten in the next 3 matches, everything Russie's been doing is validated. And if they don't, all the concerns that we've raised for the better part of 4 seasons are validated.
And then Russie's got to look at us and say, sorry.
Sorry.
Hey? If not, we've got to say, sorry.
You'll send us a text from Dublin. Sorry.
Arno David is a very, very good rugby editor, rugby journalist. So one of my good friends. I've known him for many years, and he sent me a DM pre this weekend's games and said, if the Boks are playing France, can we have a chat? Can you give me a few words on what you think is going to happen, etc., etc. And then he also said, because I have never seen, and this guy has watched all the French games, he's one of the leading voices there. He said, I've never seen a French pack hurt and as physically smashed as they were in Marseille a year ago. And people say we won the game, as in France. He said we won it against 14 players for 30 minutes. Our guys were basically doing a rotation, tagging to get off. People look at that result and say, but we didn't beat them the last time. And it's the only time we've played them in the Rassie Rasmus and Jacques Nienaber era. That's why I'm so enthralled about this game, more so than us playing the All Blacks again.
Spot on.
We play them so often. Spot on. This French team, because this to me has the makings of a World Cup final, and if we do get through that, boom, it's Paris revisited, it's 13-8 revisited, and it's the game that everyone's been calling for outside of France. They felt set the standard, and that was the best game of the pool stages. If you're talking proper rugby contest, quality of 2 teams.
Yeah, no, look, I've made it very clear. I would much rather play France than New Zealand. As much as I think New Zealand are on a downward trajectory, that is a nation that we've struggled to beat historically. Are they in a good space now? No, but they do have a lot to draw on to find belief that they can beat the Boks. France, they've beaten us once since 2010. They've won 12 or 45 matches against South Africa, I think. And are they in great form and in good nick? And do they have some of the best players in the world like I've just spoken about? Absolutely. But I am of the belief that the Boks have been keeping their powder dry for some time. And this is the moment that it has to get switched on. As much as there's been weeks where we said, oh, no, this is the week they're going to turn it on. For whatever reason, they haven't. It's going to be a massively physical battle this weekend. And I'm not sure the French have got the appetite for that.
Could you say that again? And could you say it in French?
No.
We're going to wrap up the pool stages, the 40 matches. I'm going to ask you, give me your match of the 40 from a rugby perspective, and then give me your fans match of the 40.
Well, mate, from a fan's perspective, great to see Portugal beating Fiji.
Get that goal.
Oh, that was fabulous. I really enjoyed that match. From a fan's perspective, just lovely to see the underdogs, guys who are lesser known rugby talents, winning on the biggest stage in front of their fans. You can see how much it meant to them. Absolutely fabulous. And then I suppose from a technical point of view, I really enjoyed the Boks dismantling Scotland. 4 years of talking about how Scotland have made headway, for them to come away with 3 points in that match, and the Boks playing with selections and having some question marks around technical issues. I thought it was a phenomenal performance. Just to watch them physically manhandle Scotland in that way.
All right, so you go with the Boks beating Scotland as your game of the 40, and you go with Portugal's win, obviously, as the fans' game of the 40.
What have
I'm
you
going to
got?
go with Ireland's win against the Boks. For me, technically, as the game of the tournament was a World Cup final, as far as I was concerned. We came out the wrong end of the scoreline,
Yes.
but there could be no debate about the quality of the 80 minutes. And then, if you ask me, the fans' moment, well, it had to be when Fiji beat Australia, because every time Australia loses, I feel overjoyed. And to see Australia physically smashed at the breakdown,
Yes.
is something that can never get back again.
Yeah, it doesn't get old.
It doesn't get old. I could watch that game over and over and over, and I think I'm going to. It's been wonderful chatting to you guys. Thanks, Pablo, for being in.
Fantastic.
Peps, thanks for being in. A proud Portuguese man here, a proud Irishman here, and a proud Welshman. Imad Griffiths, our producer, videographer. I mean, we just can't lose at the moment. And when we chat later in the week, we're going to tell you why we really can't lose, because that's when we put our Boks caps on.